Hi, everyone. I'm Jack, and welcome to the show.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elena.
Today, we're talking about something we all do, comparing ourselves to other people.
Yeah, it's so normal to compare, but sometimes it can make us feel bad.
Right. Have you ever, scrolled through social media and just felt that twinge of envy, like
Ah, yeah,
someone's got a nicer car or a bigger house, or they just seem so happy?
yeah. And it's easy to forget that people choose what they show us, right? They don't show us their problems or their struggles.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We're only seeing this sort of curated version of their life.
Exactly. And when we compare ourselves, we kind of forget that. And psychologists actually have a name for this. They call it the selective focus blind spot.
Oh, that's interesting. Can you explain what that means a little bit more for everyone?
Yeah, so it basically means that we only see what we're focusing on, right? So, for example, imagine you have a friend who's really good at sports. You might start comparing yourself to them and feel bad about your own athletic abilities, but you're forgetting about all the other things that you're good at.
Right? It's like when I was younger, I used to worry a lot about my acne, and I would see other people with perfect skin, and I'd feel bad about myself.
But you were forgetting about all the good things about yourself, too.
That's true.
And also remember, everyone has problems. Nobody's life is perfect.
Yeah, that's so important to remember. I remember one time I was visiting a family member,
Yeah.
and, on the surface, they seemed so chill, really relaxed about life.
Yeah.
But then I found out later they were dealing with all these challenges behind the scene.
Yeah, we rarely see the whole picture.
It's so true. And I feel like maybe because of social media, we're comparing ourselves even more now.
Yeah, I think that's true. We spend less time with people in real life and more time seeing their kind of curated online lives.
Right. And it makes it even harder to see the full picture, doesn't it?
Yeah, and when we base our worth on these comparisons, we're actually giving up control over how we feel.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about it like a seesaw. Your worth goes up when you feel better than someone, and it goes down when you feel worse. So you're letting outside things control your feelings.
So instead of comparing ourselves, what should we be doing?
Well, we should focus on our own values. What's important to us.
Oh, so for example, instead of thinking, I want to be healthy because Shelly is fitter than me, I should think, I want to be healthy, so I'm going to walk every day.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great example. You're focusing on your own goals and your own actions, not on somebody else.
Right. And that feels a lot more empowering.
Yeah, definitely. When you focus on your values, you're taking back control. You're not letting comparisons dictate your worth anymore.
I like that.
Yeah.
So we talked about how focusing on our values can help us, feel better about ourselves.
Yeah, it's like we believe there's not enough good things to go around, not enough happiness or success, so we have to fight for it.
Almost like a competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Psychologists call this the scarcity mindset, and it can really make us compare ourselves to others and feel jealous.
Yeah, it's like crabs in a bucket trying to climb out, but they keep pulling each other back down.
That's a really good analogy, and a lot of things in our society kind of encourage this mindset, you know?
Like, what do you mean?
Well, think about advertising. They're always showing us images of perfect people with perfect bodies, perfect homes, perfect lives.
Right. And it makes us feel like we need those things to be happy.
Exactly. But it's just not true. True happiness comes from within.
So what can we do about it? How can we kind of shift that?
Well, we can try to develop what's called an abundance mindset.
Okay, what's that?
It basically means believing there's enough for everyone, enough happiness, enough success. It means focusing on what we have, not what we lack.
So instead of feeling jealous of other people's success, we should celebrate it.
Yes, exactly. When we celebrate others, we open ourselves up to more joy and we actually build stronger connections too.
Because we're not seeing them as competition anymore, right?
Exactly. We're
Oh,
all in this together.
I like that. That's a much nicer way to think about it.
Hmm.
So, we were talking about social media being a trigger for comparison. Are there any other common triggers that people might encounter?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, times of change can be tough.
Like starting a new job or getting married?
Yeah, or having children, those big life transitions, they can make us feel a bit uncertain.
And we might look to others for guidance, and then we start comparing ourselves.
It's natural to want that guidance, but it's important to remember that everyone is different. Their path is not your path.
That's true. Everyone has their own unique journey.
And your journey is just as valid, even if it looks different from someone else's.
So what can we do when those feelings of comparison do come up, during those times of change?
Well, it's helpful to have people you can talk to, people you trust.
Like friends and family.
Exactly. They can offer support and perspective. You can also talk to a therapist if that feels helpful.
Yeah, sometimes just talking to someone can really help you see things more clearly.
And remember to be kind to yourself. You're doing the best you can.
Yeah, be patient with ourselves and give ourselves time to adjust to those new situations.
And celebrate your own progress. Even small steps forward are worth celebrating.
Yeah, that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in what we haven't accomplished yet.
Yeah. But focusing on what we have done, even small things, can really help us feel better.
So instead of comparing our journey to others, we should focus on our own path and, make it the best one for us.
Exactly. And remember, it's okay if your path looks different. What matters is that you're moving forward in a way that feels right for you.
I like that it takes the pressure off.
Yeah, and it allows you to enjoy the journey more.
There's another idea I wanted to kind of touch on.
Okay, what is it?
It's something called yogic psychology.
Ah, yes. That's a really interesting perspective.
Can you explain it a little bit to our listeners?
Yeah, so yogic psychology comes from the practice of yoga, and it's a way of understanding the mind. And it says that we all have this thing called an ego.
Okay, what's an ego?
So the ego is the part of us that wants to compare. It wants to know if we're better or worse than others. It wants to know where we fit in.
So our ego is kind of what drives those feelings of comparison then.
Exactly. And yogic psychology says that our ego gets louder when we're feeling bad about ourselves.
Why does that happen?
Well, the ego wants to protect us. When we feel bad, it tries to make us feel better by comparing us to others.
So it's like when you're feeling sad and then you see someone who seems worse off than you, it makes you feel a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. But it's only a temporary fix. It doesn't actually solve the problem.
So what does yogic psychology suggest we do instead?
Well, it suggests that we focus on our feelings. Don't ignore them. Don't push them away.
So if I'm feeling jealous of a friend's success, I should just sit with that feeling.
Yeah, try to understand it. Why am I feeling this way? What is this feeling trying to tell me?
That's so different from what we usually hear. We're often told to just think positive.
Yeah, but yogic psychology says that true healing comes from accepting all of our feelings, even the negative ones.
It's like when we try to ignore a problem, it just gets bigger. But when we face it head on, we can actually start to deal with it.
Exactly. And when we accept our negative feelings, we can start to understand them. And when we understand them, they lose their power over us.
That makes a lot of sense.
And when our negative feelings lose their power, our ego doesn't need to compare as much.
So we can start to break free from that cycle of comparison.
Exactly. It's a process. It takes time, but it is possible.
This is all really helpful.
I'm glad you think so.
Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up?
Yes. Remember that you are not your ego. You are so much more than that. You are a unique and valuable individual, and you deserve to be happy.
That's a great message to end on. We talked about how comparing ourselves to others can make us feel bad.
Yeah, it can make us feel jealous or sad or just kind of down on ourselves.
Right. But is there ever a time when comparison can actually be a good thing?
We can actually use comparison as a tool to help us learn and grow.
Oh, interesting. What do you mean by that?
Well, let's say you see someone who is really good at something you want to learn. You can watch them. You can observe how they do it, and it can actually inspire you.
So instead of feeling bad that they're better than me, I can use them as like a role model.
Exactly. You can learn from their example. You can use their success to motivate you to improve your own skills.
So it's like comparison can be a tool for learning and improvement if we use it in the right way.
Exactly. But it's important to be mindful of how we're using comparison. If it's making us feel bad, then we need to stop.
Okay, so how can we tell the difference between good comparison and bad comparison?
A good question to ask yourself is, how am I feeling? If you're feeling inspired and motivated, then it's probably good comparison.
But if I'm feeling jealous or discouraged, then it's bad comparison.
Exactly. Pay attention to your feelings. They will tell you what's good for you and what's not.
That's a really good tip. So if I find myself comparing myself to someone and I'm feeling those bad feelings, what can I do to kind of shift my mindset?
Well, one thing you can try is to shift your focus. Think about your own strengths. Think about what you're grateful for.
So it's like changing the channel in my mind. Instead of focusing on that other person, I can focus on myself and all the good things in my life.
Exactly. And you can also remind yourself that everyone is different. We all have our own unique journey.
So there's really no point in comparing my journey to someone else's because it's going to be different.
Exactly. Focus on your own path. Make it the best path for you.
This has been a really helpful conversation, Elena. I really appreciate you sharing your insights with us today.
You're welcome, Jack. I enjoyed talking with you.
And to all of our listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the topic of comparison. Remember, you are unique and special. There's no one else like you in the world. So embrace your individuality.
Yeah, celebrate your strengths Embrace your imperfections and keep learning and growing.
That's great advice. And we'll see you next time for another episode. Until then, take care, everyone.